So like I said, this is kind of my first exposure to jump training back when I was like an intern. It's makes a lot of sense and it's kind of compatible with what we do. You'll kind of see I wrote like SAQ up there. That's just kind of a reminder. But really, like any of these can kind of be taken and put into like a format that works for us. The biggest thing would be just kind of one, having like a zone approach, like how that is. So that's literally kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, categorized in terms of like difficulty, intensity, all that good stuff. And then as you can see going across the top there, just kind of categorizing planes, like whereas like vertical would be your squat jumps, your box jumps, linear would be like your broad jump variations, laterals, anything sideways, and rotational is like they kind of work in either you're gonna like kind of turn right or you're gonna do 180 degrees and completely turn around. But for us, I think something that we've neglected to do is really kind of own up this zone 1, and which is where they kind of really go over body positioning mechanics. Now, before we get to that, like how do you classify jumps, right? Like how do we know the difference between a jump or a hop or a bound or whatever? And basically, you have your main 3, which are going to be your jumps. It's going to be a 2-legged takeoff and a 2-legged landing. Okay, so like an ankle, like you wouldn't call this a bunny hop. It's an ankle jump, right? Because you're taking off on 2, you're landing on 2. A hop would be a 1-legged takeoff and a 1-legged landing, and then a bound would be take off on 1, land on the other. So alternating. And then there's kind of like this like. Well, we get here sometimes, right? Because we'll do a combination of hops or jumps or throws, right? So you could do like 2 ankle jumps and a throw. That'd be like a hybrid. Or 2 squat jumps and a throw. It really just depends on kind of how you want to look at it. But today, like I said, like I want to kind of go over like like the foundation of like before anyone can even jump, and then kind of how you bridge the gap from like kind of like I'm gonna write this over so I don't forget. Static versus dynamic. So the priority always, whether it's somebody new, whether it's somebody who's been here a while or is just like struggling, like it's like, can you get in this like athletic position first, right? And that's like going to be the RDL kind of like setup, where like if I were to get somebody new, I'd probably just have them put their hands on their shoulders here, right? Can you bend your knees and can you kind of sit down in this position, and then like this is where my hands would go, okay? So like you'll see why that's so important. That's why we drill that, is like what you're looking for is like, can you get set in this position here? Can you like feel hamstrings? Can you like position your body right without like being all like caved over here, like knock knees, or like way out here? Like it needs to be knees over toes, legs are tense, all right, body's upright, okay, head's in line with spine, hands are at your side. That needs to always be the priority. So even like you pair like something like that with like even just like a pipe hinge, like that's kind of how you want to progress someone brand new, whereas like you're going to teach them how to do it with a pipe, and then like from there you're going to teach them just to snap down and just get there and get stiff.
So with that, you're looking for stiffness, so they're not just flopping over.
Yeah, because like the number 1 rule of jumping is like first before, and it says it right there in that zone box 1, it says absorption before production. So like if you can't land properly, like the jump training's gonna be pretty useless, and it's gonna actually be pretty more like harmful if you don't know how to land the right way. Because I mean, you'll see it even with like kids, like they'll complain of like knees or like hips or like my girls like my back. It's like one, like it's like lifting, like they just don't know how to brace for a jump, because you do have to brace for a jump, and 2, it's like this bad landing mechanics. So like trying to figure out the best way to teach them is like 1, just don't let them jump until they're ready to land. And so like what they like to do in this like model is more of like they'll do snap downs, they'll do depth drops off low boxes, and then from there they'll kind of start to just do some more like fundamental like introductory jumps. Now like if you look at their vertical column there in zone 1, I probably wouldn't, I don't necessarily think this is in order of how they would progress it. Because if it were me, I would do snap down to athletic position first.
I was reading in that, and that's pretty much what they say they do. They work on athletic position, then they do snap down, and that is their first progression.
Okay, interesting. See, I probably wouldn't do that.
because they make sure, like, from what I was reading, like, in the beginning, it was talking about that difference between the traditional athletic position versus, like, the RDL position, because most of the time when you tell people, like, they'll want to be, like, super upright, their kind of butts kind of popped out, like, on, like, their knees are, like, almost too far forward, like, on the balls of their feet, like, hands up, kind of like, you know, athletic basketball position,
Yeah.
versus, like, the telling them to shift their weight back in their heels, or just be like, hey, like, think. That's why they stress the RDL position, because it forces them to kind of make it more midfoot as opposed to on their toes and like leading this whole thing. So.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, you're exactly right. And like that's kind of like the big thing here is, especially if you come off a depth drop, you come off something, you want to like come forward here. So it's as soon as they hit the ground, or even as a snap down, is like, can you throw? That's why the hands go back are so important, right? Because you want to go back, right? You want to, like, it's not knees, it's more hips and knees at the same time. And they do a good job of showing that in the video. And like even like something like this, like the sets and reps in here are gold. I think like kind of sticking within those zones, like that's super important. But like we are gonna probably spend a ton of time in just like the zone one, like even for high schoolers, just because there's a whole lot of just low hanging fruit there that we can kind of pick up just from teaching the right landing mechanics first. And even like in our middle school group, like you really don't need to be doing anything other than like maybe like 8th graders could like box jump, right? If you've been here for a while, but it's like you can get a lot out of just snap downs. And even just a good coaching point on that is like it's hard to coach, right? Because you get someone who's like super like chaotic, like they have no control of their body. Think of like someone who's got like no abs, right? And like they're just flopping all around. It's like the best way to kind of fix stuff like that is like you have to like overcoach it, in the sense that you're gonna tell them when to set up, hands up. You're gonna tell them when to like set, go, pause, and you literally have to tell them everything you want to do, and that'll kind of just dummy proof it. I've noticed like that's what we used to do, even just like with middle schoolers, is like you just get them set up. I'd be like, all right, up, snap down, pause. All right, go ahead, reset, and it's like they don't do anything until you tell them to do it. Like that's kind of the way to go, for at least for this, getting the body position first, right? Once people can establish that, everything else becomes so much easier. Because it's like we talked about, right? Like gravity's hard on your body. Like you're looking at like significantly like, I mean, upwards of like 5 times your body weight could be like even just kind of stepping off a 12-inch box. So it's like, if you're not teaching them how to land that correctly, and then you want to jump up past that point and then land, like that's asking for trouble if the foundation isn't laid correctly. So that's going to be kind of the new focus, is like once, like over the next week here, like I want you guys to see if you can get through that whole little book thing or video, and then when we come back here next week, we can kind of go over more questions you guys have on that. It shouldn't take very long. I just read it in like 20 minutes. You're just skimming it. Seems pretty straightforward. But I like this because it's just super simple, right? Like there's nothing crazy about this, but I do think like you can tell like that's kind of the one thing in our program that I'll look at where it just doesn't seem like we have a whole grasp on what we're actually doing, other than like, hey, I put it in here, I checked off like the right plane box, but it's like, do we know why we're doing this, or do we know like the importance of this? Because like truly, I think like this stuff's way more important than the lifting.
Right. And I think it's good that we're doing this too, because I think I'm guilty of this. Like you'd rather coach box jumps because it's gonna be less coaching, and it's almost more enjoyable to do box jumps than snap downs. So I think it's like not trying to get glamorous with it and just drilling the basics before we move on, which is much, much more important. So
Yeah, man.
And the kids want to do box jumps, right?
Exactly.
Like especially the middle schoolers are like, oh,
Yeah,
we
box
all want to
jumps,
do this, but
right.
like, gotta kind of earn the right to do box jumps.
Yeah, you have to, and you just tell them that, because like it's not like we're like withholding stuff from them that like per se.
They can't do on their own.
Yeah, you gotta make it like you gotta prove yourself, right? Like don't go play in the big leagues. We haven't played t-ball before, and it's just like, dude, let's just don't skip the steps. So the biggest thing obviously is getting people like, can they get in that leg position? So it's not down, right? Like Alex said, where it's a squat, it's back and up, right? So it's like you want to get down to like a quarter squat, because as soon as I step off a box and I'm here, I go up here and I land here, I don't want to land down here. I highlighted this, referring to like jumps and like how high and stuff like that, because like, you go, okay. This is like in the FAQ at the end of the thing. It says, what's the highest box or hurdle you use, and like what about the height of depth jumps? And they said they go as high as they can without sacrificing form with like a box jump. As soon as you see like feet kicking around the side, kind of like a leapfrog, or you see knees hitting chest, or like stomping on the box, landing with like your butt on your hamstrings or your ankles, like it's way too high. And like rarely does anyone ever need to use probably like a hurdle box over a 24. Like even like our dudes like Stone or like any of our jumpers, like because like we said, it's not even how you jump, right? It's how you land, and like it's the intent of the jump. So if I tell someone to jump as high as you can, the box height shouldn't matter, right? Like I could do all my box jumps up to this, like I could still come up here and then I'll land on it, and you actually get a better training effect because your landing's further. You have to absorb more forces eccentrically, and you get stronger from it. But like they say, so usually, and that's not to say like you can't put more on it. Like yeah, could like we put a 40-inch box up there and have like JT jump there? Yeah, I don't care. But like it's just like why would we take all that extra work? When if you coach it right, the height shouldn't matter. But it is hard to get those kids to think like, hey, like even though it's a 12-inch box, like treat it like a 24. But it should be like
there's almost like the inverse problem of like kids who can barely get up to like the 20, trying to walk up to the 24 and do it just because they can land up there. Doesn't mean that they're like landing, that they're just kind of getting up there and like flopping around. Like I was thinking about that with like 2 different athletes last night in the middle school group, that smaller dudes, but like think that because they can get up on like the 20th buck, they should. I'm like, no.
And see, and like stuff like that exposes our lack of doing the basics right? Like even like watching this single like snap down group the other day, it's like all these kids could probably just be doing a double leg because it doesn't like they just can't get there on their own, let alone take away a leg. But like in this, like when they do depth drop jumps or like depth drops, like you're looking at like a 6, 12, or 18 inch. That's one, like 18 inches being like the top. And so like if you're doing a middle school depth drop, like this would be the highest box you would use. Because like even like so a depth landing would just be a snap down off the box. Like a depth jump would be when you land and then you jump immediately again. And that's more kind of like a what you'd call a maximal plyometric, which is like you're not doing that unless you are been training like for probably 3 or 4 years, because you're really not going to get a ton out of it. And it's tough. Like the average, like you do 1 rep every 10 minutes is like what's prescribed typically in like traditional text. Yeah, which is like you want to do a whole session of just plyometrics and then go home and come back and live later, because like that's
you're doing 6 jumps.
That's pretty much
full session, 1 hour, 6 jumps.
We used to do 30 at a 48-inch box as part of like 120 reps.
Yeah, you're coaching on reps.
Yeah. I got an idea for middle school.
Yeah, what you got?
Because like we take away the 24-inch box, we could just take away the 20. And then force them on 2 boxes, and then we give more attention. Like
no, we take the 12 and the 6 pad, and we separate them, and we have to.
Yeah, you could make you could make 3 12-inch boxes, or honestly, like they're new, they should be just stepping off the 6-inch pad.
6 inches good.
But like so once like now we can kind of progress forward here on this. Like I said, you guys are all over the next week are gonna go ahead and dive into this stuff, and then come back with questions. But like it's I like anything on here, and so like even if it's not in the exercise pool per se, like you know, like hey, like we haven't done hurdle jumps. Like if you wanted to grab the white hurdles and like set them up and do them, it takes forever. But like we can do that. I have no issues with that. But
what would that look like? Like 3 or 4 hurdles?
Well, even like the green hurdles.
Mm-hmm.
They take no time set up, and they're probably the right height for most movers.
Yeah, it just depends, right? I think you can get away with like honestly like just like 2 hurdles and a stick. Like if you're thinking like young kids, like hurdle, stick. It all just depends on where they kind of fall in that continuum of like what are they capable of doing in terms of like their snap down or like their just like good positioning. Because if they can't get an athletic position, then like it's gonna be hard to land, especially after repeat efforts. That's why this whole zone 1 is no recoil whatsoever. So if we do hurdles, it's going to be more of a recoil. That's going to be just a little more advanced, and like we have the freedom to do that now with the sheets. Like,
right.
If you wanted to put that in there, that would just be like kind of just like elastic power. development or like kind of power capacity development over distance. But like, yeah, I would probably do like 3 to 5 hurdles. And then just depending on the intent, like you could either do like max jumps over them, like hands on your hips, or you could just do quick ones.
You like
ankle elasticity, but
max jumps? You're thinking like knee tuck or?
Yeah, or like you could just literally just like kind of
straight out.
Like, and then like it just be a longer ground contact.
See, but when so my question, I guess, is when it says no recoil, like per set, it says 3
Requires
to 6
a
jumps. So it's just like jump, stick, and then
Reset.
go again. Okay.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, then that's what they mean by long response too, right? Like it requires a reset between you jump, you land, and you go again. Whereas like that zone 2 is gonna be medium response. It's gonna be more like a jump, stick, like I said. So that's gonna be like repeat where like they'll jump up on a box and then they'll go ahead and they'll step off that other side and land like a depth drop. Or like you'll do a depth drop off a box and as soon as you land you go up, or as soon as you land you go out. Really anything like that. Like, and if you think like, you kind of saw I draw like an S like in between the line of vertical and linear, because like realistically like linear stuff, like anything in this linear category is probably going to be like that like S, like that our day one like jump progression. So like whether like you want to do hurdles or like they say long jump as a broad jump, or like a snap down to a hurdle jump, snap down to a long jump. The higher the hurdle, obviously, like the more focus goes on to just kind of like force production. So like with zone 1, you're going to be working in this kind of category here, which we talked about I think a few weeks ago, is like coming out of a static, right? So like no counter movement. You're not relying on stored energy, because anytime you get a swing going here, that's like what you'd call your elastic response or your stretch shortening cycle. And so basically what happens is you get all this stored energy just in tendons and ligaments in your ankles, knees, hips, wherever, like in your joints. And as soon as you rapidly stress those out, so like for example, a depth drop, you're really going to utilize that energy because it happens so fast. But even as you're doing that with like a swing, like a box jump, like you're using that as well. That's good if you have some strength. But like if you got nothing in you and all you're relying on is like stored energy, you're not going to really develop a lot of explosiveness, because like, I'm trying to think, it's like almost like kind of like taking like a like a Prius and dropping like a V8 in it, right? It's just like, it's kind of overkill.
Right.
It's probably like the frame's not really going to hold on long term. But like if you go out of a static hold, right? Like even think like if I just sit here for like 3 seconds, like I'm already like feeling okay, like a little bit hamstring, a little bit quad, and you got to shoot out of that. You can't use, like you're using it, like don't get me wrong, but the muscular demand on like quads, calves, like shins, all that stuff is so much greater than if you were to utilize kind of a stretch. And so like when we're doing this, like this would be like, okay, so like they give you zone 1, here's all the rules, like jump and stick, no recoil, all right? Primary double leg landing and then absorption before production. I would even add in there to this, like static over dynamic. So like nothing is moving, there's no swinging, there's no nothing. And if they like, and then like, so if the focus is on producing force and landing correctly always, and almost opposite, like one, can they land correctly, and then it's like, okay, once they do that, then they can produce force. So like if I were to do a box jump or a snap down or a squat jump, or like you can even just do like a tuck jump. That'd even be pretty more advanced though, like seriously, like, because you're bringing your feet up and you're increasing the landing. But like even if I was to just do like a box jump, like if I'm like in a middle school group, be like, all right, everybody get down, like hands back, chest up, show me your shirt, go, and then they land. I would even see like that on my, that was a terrible landing. Like just stuff like that. I think, and then from there you'd progress to like a swing, or like if like you could just throw in another exercise and really drill the crap out of it.
I like the idea of a snap down into a long jump, because not for the beginners, but for maybe the guys that have figured out snap downs, because you're in a position where you need to broad jump well. Mm-hmm. And so they're thinking like, okay, it's not just a snap down, it's a snap down into an athletic position, like a more ready position.
No, for sure. And then that's the progression, right? Where if you can teach someone to snap down, then you always snap down before you do something. So like, to take that drill for example, right? I maybe that's one variation of it, but we probably could start here where it's like, all right, we just did the snap down for a month. All right, now let's see if we can throw it in a jump. So I'd be like, all right, ready, set, snap, up, and that's the same thing, right? But like as long as we're getting a pause in between, that's like good enough for them to settle and reposition. One, you give them a better position to kind of get set in their stance, and then two, you're gonna give them a better opportunity. They get another chance to kind of not use that stretch shortening cycle, and you're gonna be more muscularly dominant.
Well, that's good because we do a lot of pauses.
Yeah.
3 second, 2 second. So what you're saying is it'd be more dynamic when we do no pause and just straight down, straight up.
That is dynamic,
That
right?
is dynamic.
Moving.
Okay.
Anytime if it's a continuous movement,
That makes sense.
but you chop it up, totally fine. That would be, I consider that kind of like a low level, like zone 1 kind of like body positioning mechanic that deal.
So then looking at this, kind of realizing with like our high school for like Monday or day 1 rather, we had that like banded double broad or just double broad jump. We should probably not do that.
Depending on,
I mean, we can it for most people like even just a snap down to like broad jump. It's still linear in like zone 1.
100%.
It's a little more. It's still dynamic, but it's.
Well, like I said, like it can be dynamic or it cannot be. It depends on what you want to do. Like if you just snap down and like when they say snap down, that assumes there's a pause.
Oh.
So like that's why their whole like first group like boxers like snap down in the athletic position, snap down in the single leg, snap down in the box jump.
Okay.
There is no recoil, so everything they do would be a snap down. And they literally like if you watch them coach, like they have they have a bunch of resources out there. So there's a lot of like he's a whistle coach. So it's like one blow, snap down, second blow up on the box, third blow do whatever he's got, or they're like he's like just screams like uncontrollably. Dude's really loud and like super ADD.
The ripped guy?
Yeah, he was I think he was a U.S. javelin thrower.
Oh man.
Yeah, he's explosive.
That's right up
He's
your
an
alley.
explosive dude. But he's giving presentations and he like literally like gets like hyped up. He's like, whoa! He's
Is this the guy that's like he does this flex thing and
whatever he does. Yeah, he always does that.
That's funny.
So then the beginning of the broad jump, that would be static, and then the second time you land and go up quick, that'd be dynamic. So would that be a mix of both?
For a snap down to a broad jump.
No, the broad jump.
A broad jump would be kind of like a
The double broad
it'd be like a zone 3, wouldn't it?
Zone 3.
Yeah, like what Tom was saying, like
Like weighted.
if it's not a snap down and then something, it's like if you're doing a double broad jump, it's gonna be totally dynamic. So you're
Because
starting
it's
top
no
and then you're
pause,
going,
okay.
going,
Gotcha.
stick, then.
Okay, that makes sense.
Which there's a place for that too, right? And like honestly, like I don't know, like sometimes I just don't know, like the benefit of that. To be honest, like I mean, like yeah, like you're kind of once somebody can do a single broad jump, like a double broad jump would just be the next logical progression, because then you're kind of creating like more force output, so like they can do stuff repeatedly, right? Because nothing in sports is going to be like that would be an acyclical jump. It's a one jump, right? Nothing in sports acyclical. It's all cyclical. So it's like you want to give them the ability to train that. But I don't know. I'd have to look into that because like that would be more elastic power. And but it could be. Yeah, you know what? I think they would probably put it as introductory power. I don't know. Yeah, like a repeat long jump, boom, boom. Yeah, that's like more of like a kind of like a moderate jump. Yeah, okay.
So for most of our high schoolers, it's not too bad, just as long as they've demonstrated like proficiency.
Yeah, like I was like watching Natalie last night. Like she did it fine. Like her jumps were the same height. Like but like I remember her from like even last year. It's like all I really did with the young dudes were snap downs, broad jumps, box jumps, and snap downs, or like a snap down, or we do like a snap down, up, stick. But like everything was stick. Like everything is like stick. Like athletic position, like every single jumping drill is like that is like everyone's gonna be so annoyed with you by the time that's done, just because like that's all you're drilling is just stick. And even just like making it kind of fun, like I would always just poke fun at people or be like consider like a race, like oh like you just like snap down so much faster than you, and like even though they hate it, it's not like that. It feels like you're not doing much. Make it competitive somehow, or like kind of like incentivize them to want to compete, which you shouldn't have a problem doing with like especially some of those dudes out there. Like that's all they want to do. Because like when I'm looking at this, I don't really think like I don't know if we'll ever get to the point where we need to do like a zone 3 or zone 4 because and they lay this out in the like in their little book guide, but like we don't get a true like off-season athlete rarely, and like they program it out to where like in the year how many weeks they're gonna do, like they'll do like all right, we're gonna do 6 weeks of zone 1 with a deload, and then like starting in like week 7 we're gonna do 3 weeks of like a zone 2, and then like a week of zone 3 and a week of zone 4, and then they're off back to school. It's like that's great, but like most of their people probably just go solely to them, and if they don't, like they just kind of they have a better system for that. Whereas luckily we get people who are just super untrained, and so like making the most out of zone 1 and then seeing what we can get away with like zone 2 would be better. And then like once we get crazy, like you could probably put like a few people there. You probably give Stone like some like a weighted box jump, and he'd probably get some serious benefit out of that. But even like you can even ask them like, hey, have you ever done this before? And they're like, most of them will probably say no. So it's like sweet, all right, it's got really easy all of a sudden. Yeah, so like I would like, especially moving into the months ahead, and even this month if it's not too late to change stuff, like let's kind of live here where everything's gonna be static, everything's gonna be based off of this right here. And then a good question then would be like, how do you know if someone's ready to progress? That's something I kind of want to ask you guys. Like, what do you like? Who like? What's like? What is good enough?
Just repeated demonstration of proficiency.
What does proficiency look like?
That's a tough question.
It is.
Yeah.
But like that's that's essentially our job. It's like all right, when did they pass this threshold? Like when can they graduate? And because like it's a little more objective, right? It's not like, hey, like yeah, you can get up to a 24-inch box. They're gonna let you go on to this certain jump. It's kind of like by your eye, but it's like how can we all see the same thing?
I think monthly.
Monthly, just change it. Even though, what if somebody came once?
I'm saying like monthly. If someone's been coming like 2 times, 3 times a week, and
how are you gonna track that?
add.
Exactly. See. So people can get lost in the weeds, and I'm kind of like I'm being like playing devil's advocate on purpose, right? Like I want to see like.
Right.
What if we have the sheets? What if, at least for high school, what if we started ranking? Like we watched their plyos and it's like that was a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's objectable measures that we can look at, right? It may look different because people are different, but like in my mind, it's like, can they get this, right? Like if it takes more than 2 reps for you to kind of remind them to do this, and they're not able to get that athletic position on a landing of any kind of jump, it's not the right jump for them. And so like that should kind of be like the new golden rule. It's like, all right, you get 2 jumps to kind of like
prove.
Yeah, well, it's like one, like if we're doing our job, like we shouldn't even need to even voice that, because you go to do like box jumps, like you should know that like for like Eric said, for one, like the 24-inch boxes shouldn't even be out there. And like because they can get up there, like if you like they should land high hips, right? So like if like I like to think of like Hank, Lily, like people like I've seen so many people just like get up there great, but it's like as soon like Alex said, as soon as they get up there, the task is done, and that's like no, like that's half of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, can you like and then use that as like a tool, like hey, like your landing is pretty bad, like we're gonna like take you down to a smaller box until you can show me like you can land like this up there. And then like that's kind of how like you would watch it, right? It's like I've seen people like who like if you teach them to box jump and land super low, like this just becomes normal. and then like they just think this is always right, and then when you go like they're like, oh, I can probably box jump a couple inches higher and land like this still. It's like, yeah, you probably can, but like I'd rather you land like up here. I would say like land like you're ready to do something, right? If I were to like throw a ball at you, like could you catch it, or like if I'm gonna like kick a soccer ball at you, like could you kick it back right away? Like
I think cueing all of our plyometric stuff will be a huge benefit. Like cueing it more.
yeah, right. Like literally just calling out commands.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And having everybody on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And then getting whistles.
No. Whistle guy.
Dude, that would be.
It'd be so loud.
Yeah.
I thought
Why am I here?
I would be lying if I.
You know how sick it'd be if we did like all could whistle like really well. I know some people that have some sick whistling skills.
Bring in some whistlers and we'll make them.
Put that on the next intern application. Can
you
you whistle
whistle?
really well?
Yes.
No, I think. I mean, and just to kind of on the spot here, we can kind of make something up. But I would really say, like, one, like, if this gets sacrificed at all, like, we obviously know, like, we got to make it easier. But then it's like, just ask another, like, ask who's ever out there with you, like, hey, like if it's, yeah, like, it's really, if it's just you two, like, hey, like, looks good, like, okay, cool, bring them up. And for the middle schoolers, right, like, you should be assigning them to their box, like, that they don't get to pick. And for high school, like, if they're not asking you, like, hey, can I go up? Then one, they're probably not ready, and like, but if there's the off chance that one kid who doesn't really want to talk and like they can do more, then you can go up and tell them. But I really think like if you two agree, or like me and you agree, or whoever's out there, like Eric or Ian, like, hey, like that looks pretty good to me. Like they probably could go up a little bit if they want to, but like I said, like for like jumping, it doesn't really matter.
But it's just like testing out, right? You're graduating, and we need another coach to see.
Yes, yeah, in a
So
sense,
it's
yeah.
basically like the same thing.
Yeah, we just want to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
Seeing the same thing. But like for me, I would probably do, if you're looking at that first box, I would probably do snap down first, and then a depth drop, then probably a snap down to a single leg, then a snap down to like a box jump, and then snap down to like a squat jump, and then from there everything else would kind of go after that in no particular order really. But remember, it's all single response, so just boop, done. Like, and that's probably where we're gonna live for the next couple of weeks, probably the next month or two. And then even in like the linear or like the hurdle, like a lateral box jump, I would never do that. I would do a rotational one, but like, I don't know. I could just see that going sideways real quick.
Yeah, like tripping.
Yeah, like sliding off the box, or like people not paying attention, or like. But a lateral depth drop, that'd be easy, right? Just step off sideways, do the man. I think that has a tremendous amount of value. But like rotational stuff's fine. Like I like rotational stuff, and even
Do lateral hurdle.
Lateral hurdle, lateral ankle jumps, like.
We were doing that in the summer for sprints.
Yeah. Anything that goes, what day is that? Is that Fridays? So all your Friday jumps would be like lateral hurdles, lateral broad jumps are sick because you really don't have to coach them, because like no one really gets like, because the biggest thing you see on a broad jump is one, like not feeling your whole foot, not landing in athletic position, landing in this like garbage like squat, like falling forward, knees like just caved in, like reckless abandon, just like smashing into each other. Whereas like if you do it sideways, like you have no choice but to like it just puts you there. Like I'm not trying to do anything. Like it's kind of it's really easy, and like you don't really have to coach it. It's a fun one. And then once you get proficiency with this, like I would just say, you could probably get just almost as much out of zone 1 as if you just made anything dynamic. Like I don't think you necessarily even need to go to zone 2 right away, where you could just be like, hey, like, all right, we just did a month or two of like snap downs 2 things. Now just snap down up and like just like go and make
And
it
the
react.
progression, well, I mean, the logical progression in my mind would go 2 legs to then 1 leg. In zone 1.
For snapping down.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a box jump on one leg.
I mean, just in general, it says like primary double leg, but then like zone 2 says like 1 to 2 leg landings, but like if you just took that into zone 1 with regular snap downs or snap down into like a hop or something like that, like,
Yeah, you could totally do that.
or like a hybrid of like single leg snap down into like 1 leg hop, 2 leg in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see any problem with that. I mean, just like anything else, right? Once we get proficient on 2, we could probably start to move to 1. It just depends on what you're trying to chase. So I think like a single leg snap down has some merit if you're gonna look to do like a single leg snap down, like a double leg landing, or you could just do like a double leg takeoff, so like a jump to a single leg landing. That would be just person dependent, I think.
Sounds terrifying.
Really, I did it a few weeks back on mine. It's not that bad. If you go to like the appropriate box height, it's kind of tough to land.
Oh, up to a box?
Yeah.
That sounds better.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I was thinking just.
We did that too. Like you do like a 2-legged snap down or 2-legged squat jump and do a single leg landing.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't think I've really had any issues with that. As long as like the people know, like you'll get someone like Zach Hewitt, like you watch him, he does everything perfectly. Cause like, I think we did snap downs for 3 years. And like, so like now he can go do anything, like no issues whatsoever. Like I don't think I've been coaching a kid in like a year and a half.
He's got the flow.
It's gotta be his hair. But no, like even some of these, like I don't think like with how much speed work we do and how much other stuff, like I'm not gonna probably look to do like split jumps or like box jump step ups. Like I just don't think we need to go there with the people we have.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to have in your toolbox. But that's gonna be like probably like the 2% where like maybe we get somebody like maybe we get a group of college guys in here and like towards the end of the summer as they're transitioning to like camp, you'd want to hit like more maximal power elasticity. Then you could probably look to do like an alternating lateral step up jump where like you've never seen those before. It would just be like a step up and like jump or like just weird stuff like that. That emphasize more kind of single leg power. Single leg depth drops or whatever the heck you want to do.
It's like a Zumba class.
Yes. Except for you're doing like 1 to 2 reps.
Yeah.
Eric and Zumba.
Or like like even in the book you talk about
Tasty.
like contrast methods and stuff like that, all that good stuff. No. I think that's good. They also they made a cool little suggestion here that I thought we could maybe if you guys wanted to play around with it in the middle school group, like they do half their group jumps, half their group throws, and they switch.
So doing both.
They do both.
I like that.
Yeah, which I like as well, especially because like think of like the little kids who just like I think we probably should be always doing some sort of med ball pass.
Yeah.
With the upper body and then the jumps or the depth drops of the lower body.
So catching
you can
too.
even have like a med ball like snap down like we used to do like chop and lifts where like I remember like even doing this like when JT was like in 7th grade like you just pulled your hip pocket just and like snap down and check into your hip.
Anti-rotation.
Yeah. Like if I were to go here like step bring it over my other ear step but you're just creating stiffness.
Yeah, that would have a lot of benefit for sure. So you'd want to do jumps and throws on day 1, day 2, and day 3.
You very well could. I mean,
For
you think
middle
about it, you
school,
could, in the high school group, it depends, right? Like, it depends on what their lift is, but, because we could jump as a group after and then go throw in between lifts, or you could throw after the sprints and then go jump in between lifts.
I mean, for middle school, especially like being more of like a just like circuit style,
Right.
even slow kids are getting through that thing 3 or 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we took more time to coach and teach like like after the sprints doing like snap downs and throws and like stuff like that would be way more beneficial than doing
it should
subpar,
take like
single arm band row.
it should take 7 to 10 minutes to do jumps.
And that would definitely keep their focus in for sure. So not doing something for 25 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
No.
I like.
Yeah, it's all technical. Like as long as we're like, especially with that like group of people, they just need really, really good fundamentals, and like that's it. But truthfully, you can leave the workout the same for a month or for a year. You probably still see improvement in some people, but I do think it would be one. I'm not gonna do that just because that's boring for us, but like two, like the money's gonna be in what looks like a sport, right? And like lifting doesn't really look too much like a sport. That's not to undermine the fact that it's incredibly helpful, but like basically you have your two categories of like your gorilla type people and your kangaroo type people, and it's like you want to just get anyone. So if you got a gorilla, you want to move them more towards a kangaroo, and if you got a kangaroo, you want to move them more towards a gorilla. Kind of find that sweet spot. It's like make your strong people more reactive, and make your reactive people stronger.
Now I know how you see the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Animal Kingdom did it.
Yeah, what am I doing?
Giraffe.
You're silverback. You're all strength.
Trevor's a trap.
I love that.
There's a kangaroo.
Boing.
At that.
Teach me who it is.
Colton's a kangaroo. Stone's a kangaroo. JT's a kangaroo. But they're all kangaroos that have like a pretty dang good amount of strength. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Except for your boy here.
No, I'd say like you're pretty dang in the middle.
Dude, join the side. Come to the dark side, bro.
Because like I mean you're strong, but you're not like super elastic. Like you don't have like what's your vertical? 30?
31.
Okay. I mean
It's up there.
that's pretty good. That's
really good. For an old boy.
for an old boy. I think if you ran a sprint program like just a true Derek's like a 12 to 16 week sprint program, I think you'd be very kangaroo. You just don't train enough.
Boing.
Do you want to be kangaroo?
I mean, at what point would it, other than just like physical personal benefits, what would it, like I'm not getting better at a sport.
Right, so
I'm
that's
9
why
years old, so
I want to know, would you rather be a gorilla or a kangaroo?
I'd rather be a gorilla.
Yes.
I'd rather be a freaking Mack truck.
Would you rather see a gorilla or a kangaroo on the beach?
Neither.
Don't think too hard about that.
I don't want to think about seeing Trevor at the beach.
Well, it's gonna happen. So
I'm not going with Trevor.
I'll invite you
Questions on this? Is this making
separately.
Only if the holds are hard fan.
Oh,
Invite
get
me.
out of here. Get out of here.
Any questions? No. That was very well explained. Great coaching, teaching.
Thank you.
Trevor understood it, so that means he taught it well.
Ouch. Ouch. Ouch is right. No, I think this will be helpful.
Absolutely.
And like if you guys sit down to write programs and like you don't have at least like 2 or 3 resources in front of you, it's probably not gonna be a very good program. That's not to say make it hard on yourself, it's to say like there's just important things you need to know. Like and even in there they have like Plyometrics chart, which is like that's kind of like the gold standard for sets and rep schemes for like certain percentages. And you can find that anywhere, and that's in pretty much every book in this room. But it's just like no, like either memorize this stuff or like just keep it around you. Because like anytime I sit down to write a program, like I'm taking like 3 or 4 resources, I'm taking other programs. Like you want to make sure you got a lot of input to see one what worked before, and 2 like what's kind of like the standard, so that you can know to deviate from it, right? Because we always want to make the perfect program, but we always know it's never really going to execute it. But like knowing that like okay, like we're going to be probably 3 to 6 reps per set, and we want to hit about 18 to 30 total reps, which is like you can do 6 by 3, you can do 5 by 6, like you're anywhere from that rep range, like that. How that increases, it just gives you a good target to hit, and that way like everyone's on the same page. And like if you know what week it is in the training block, you know what set and rep it is for set exercise without even having to look at anything, because like you just know, hey, we do this on week 3, it's going to be 5 by 5 on jumps, because we're working up to 30, that's 25 reps, so next week we'll increase 5 reps. Like just, you know, getting everything on the same page. Because especially as things get bigger, we get more people in here once things kind of start to lighten up here, probably the next couple of weeks, if this vaccine gets approved or whatever is going on there. get like 20 people in here, because we can handle 20, no problem.
God bless. Pray that happens.
Sweet.
I do like the 15s though. And I do like.
15's nice, but we'd
doing the
probably have another coach. I mean, we'd probably yank Eric out of the office or get somebody else in here. So it wouldn't be anything off anybody's back. Like I want to keep it so there's 5 to a person, and right now we're like doing like 1% is 5, 1% is 3, 1 is 2, 1 is 7, 1 is 5. Like, okay, spread the wealth, spread the love. No, cool.
Closing statement.
Closing statement.
Colton, thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Watching.
Yeah, Colton.
Jump train's gonna be off the charts coming into springtime. Spring bunnies are with us. That was terrible. Please don't.
Yeah, I was like, edit that.
What you meant, like Easter bunnies, right?
Yeah, Easter bunny. Got it.
Yeah.
March.
I get it.
Spring. Hop right into the spring season. Ouch.
Dude, that's a double hop in spring.
Bound on in spring season.
There you go. Very good.
Switch you legs.
Dude, now you ruined.
These videos suck.
Closing statement.
Thanks for watching.
Work in progress.
Closing statements. Let's go take a look at the jumps. See if anything's changed. Trevor, what's a jump?
What is a
What's
jump?
the definition of a jump?
Two-legged, jumping up at the same time.
Now, what? Two-legged jumping up at the same time.
Yeah, jump.
You leaving one leg on the ground somehow?
No, two-legged jumping up at the same time. You jump,
That's half.
How do you land?
landing with both feet on the
There
ground.
you go. Two-legged takeoff, two-legged landing.
Okay, yeah. Correct.
Correct.
Okay, it's
Right next to it.
two-legged jump, one-legged, no, landing? Is that right? No, it's one-legged jump,
Because what did
one-legged
you just say
landing.
was if you take off at 2 feet, what is it?
The jump, so it's
Okay.
1 and 1,
Yes.
yes.
Bound.
It's where you jump off of one, land on the other, because
Yes.
I did bounce, and that was hard.
There you go.
What's a hybrid?
Because I did.
Hybrid's a mixed ball.
Hybrid's a Prius with a V8.
But
Yes. Good.
I want one,
Don't forget that. It's important stuff.
write it down right now.
All right, cool.
Doesn't matter.
Smack the camera, Thomas.
We out.